councillors short. I think we have everyone who is due to be here. Welcome to this meeting of the Planning Committee on the 6th of August 2025. I'm Councillor Thompson and I'm Chair of the Planning Committee. Would committee members please note that where a decision is made on an agenda item, to be able to participate in the debate and vote, members must be present throughout the entirety of the committee's consideration of that item. So that includes the officer presentation, any public speaking, as well as the question and debate session. In the event that a member needs to leave the chamber briefly during consideration of an item, but still wishes to participate, the member should indicate to me as chair that they need to be excused. And if that's the case, I'll briefly suspend the meeting for the duration of their absence. Can I remind members that mobile phones should be switched off, that they should not be used as a means of communication during the meeting. And if members need to make or receive a message via their phone, please alert me as chair. Where members are using tablets to access agenda papers electronically, please ensure that these are switched to airplane mode. So the following order should be followed for each of the agenda items. We have the presentation by planning officers, any speakers if there are any, planning officer clarifications if required. That will be followed by committee member questions, and then we go to debate and then the vote. I have a note here on the chair's running order that we'll be taking breaks during the meeting. However, I am hoping that given that we only have one major and one minor this afternoon, that we won't need to take a break, that we'll be able to do them both back to back, but we'll see how we go. Are any members in attendance as substitutes today? No? And do any members wish to declare any interest in relation to any applications on the agenda? No. So we need to consider whether, in view of the possible confidential nature of the business or proceedings, if the press and public should be excluded from the meeting when any of the planning applications are under consideration. And I can confirm that we don't have any confidential items today, so press and public will not be excluded. Does the committee approve the minutes for the 2nd of July 2025, which are attached to the agenda? Approved? Unanimous? Okay. And then I will just go to Chair's communications. There's a couple of notices that I just wanted to draw your attention to. The first regards the L3 Harris application, which, if you recall, this was an application for a permanent roof to be erected on the extension of Emblem House at Home Farm Business Centre. Members will note that we received the appeal decision dated the 24th of July, and the inspectorate has decided that the appeal will be allowed, which is disappointing to those of us who voted against approval at the time, and officers are now reviewing the appeal decision and will update members again in due course if there are any grounds for challenge. I'd also like to raise members' attention to the planning training that was held in this chamber last Wednesday. This was a 3-hour refresher session. Anyone who is unable to attend will need to seek out the webcast and make sure that they watch it in their own time. This is mandatory training, so you have to watch it in order to continue to attend committee. Now, I don't have a deadline for when this needs to be done, so you're all very welcome today, because I know not everybody was able to make the meeting last week, the training last week. I don't have a deadline. I'm actually, Nicola Hurley, the head of planning, is going to advise me later this month when she returns from holiday as to how the dates work out. But if everyone could make sure that they have done it before we meet again in September, that would be terrific. And I would also like to urge committee members to attend briefings, because I'm noticing quite often that, these are, pretty poorly attended. They're held the week before committee, and they're actually really informative sessions. It's the point at which, questions of clarification can be aired. You've got the planning officers there. Obviously, it's without any predetermination, but it can be really useful to get, a proper briefing before you attend committee the following week. So I would thank you for attending those. Thank you. And moving on, there's no public involvement for this meeting. Do committee members have any requests for accompanied site visits in relation to the applications we're considering today? No? Great. The Democratic Services Officer will now read out the applications on the agenda and ask committee members if they want to discuss the items as they're called. Please be aware that applications need to be called for discussion, not just for questions. Over to you, Dawn.
Thank you, Chair. So we have two applications on the agenda today, one major, which is therefore automatically called, and one minor, which is BH 2025/00936 Dyke Road, Hove. That has speakers, so that is also called. So both items on the agenda are automatically called. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. So we will start with the major application, which is BH 2025/00899, and this is land adjacent to the west stand of the American Express Stadium, which is on Village Way, Brighton, BN1 9BL. So I will hand you over to our planning officer, Wayne, to give us a presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. This is a planning application for land adjacent to the west stand of the Amex Stadium. The planning application is for the excavation of the existing bank on the site and the erection of a decked car park, which would provide 43 parking spaces for employees and directors of the football club. The car park is spanned over 3 floors, and it also includes a lift and stair shaft with a footbridge link to the stadium. The planning application site, as stated in the description, is in front of the west stand of the stadium and is located here. That's the existing grass bank. And then there's the existing concourse, the outside concourse of the stadium in between the site and the stadium. So this is the application site outlined in red, and then the blue land ownership is outlined in blue around the stadium and the access points. This is an aerial photo of the site. So just to note that Falmer train station is in fairly close proximity to the site, with the pedestrian walkways and the approach to the stadium. And then on the other side of the site is the adjoining University of Brighton Falmer campus site. This is a 3D aerial photo of the site, so you can see the existing green bank and also the existing hard standing, which includes a few existing car parking spaces and also provides existing coach parking on match days for the stadium. But also note that in this photo you can see the private access road which comes off Village Way, which is the highway access to the site. This plan from the applicant's planning statement provides some wider stadium context, which includes labelling the existing car park areas on the site and also some of the other car parking areas outside of the stadium site, which are used on match days. So this includes car park A, which is on the other side of the stadium from the site. So the site is here. Car park A is on the other side, which provides 128 existing spaces for staff, but also for fans on match day that have paid for those spaces. This also shows Bennett's Field, which is the larger area next to car park A, which used to be used for car parking by the football club, 522 spaces. But since 2021, this has not been in use because of a planning permission that was granted by Lewes District Council. You can also see the coach and bus parking just to the south of that. And then there's also car park E, which is used by staff and staff and players on match days. And then outside of the site, you can see the other car parking spaces that are used on match days, including car park B, which is the bridge car park, 650 spaces, 1,000 spaces at the University of Sussex, 77 spaces on the University of Brighton Falmer campus, 200 spaces at the Southern Water car park, and also 40 spaces at Court Farm. So this is just to mention the planning consent that was granted on appeal by Lewis District Council. So it's an area outside of Brighton and Hove boundary. So that's the existing car park A. And this is Bennett's Field, which used to be used by parking up until 2021. It now has a planning consent allowed at appeal in November 2023 for a purpose-built student housing development. So this is an existing photo from Falmer Station, and you can see that the approach to Falmer Station. You can see the approach to the stadium from the station here, and then you can see the application site in the distance there. And then if you continue that approach and go anti-clockwise around the stadium, you will come to this outside concourse of the stadium, and you can see the stairs and the ramps that lead up to the higher land level going towards the application site, which is the green bank there. And then in the background, you can see the adjoining University of Brighton Falmer campus. This is an existing photo from the other way. So this is from Village Way Highway and then onto the private road before you reach the existing ramp towards the application site behind these trees here. And this is a view of the existing site from within the stadium. So you can see the application site here, the bank that's proposed to be excavated, and the existing car parking spaces, and that's the concourse in front. So there's 3 levels of the car park. This shows these floor plans. This shows level 0, which is the ground floor parking of the car park, which you can see here. This is the existing ramp that leads down to that level. These are those stairs that you can see from that previous photo, and this is the stadium. And these level 0 ground floor parking spaces would be accessed via the existing concourse level. This is level 1, so this is the middle deck of the car park, open-sided, and car parking spaces on that level are accessed via a new access way from the existing ramp that leads down. And you can also see that the coach parking that is used as existing on match days is also retained in the proposals underneath the canopy of the car park, which you can see there is the partial canopy there, because this is level 2, which is the top deck, the rooftop deck of car parking spaces, which you can see here. And you can also see the access to the lift and stair shaft here, which leads up to a level 3 proposed plan, which isn't a car parking level. It's purely to show the access of the stairs and lift above and the footbridge. So those parking spaces are from the level below. This is an existing plan of the existing soft landscaping on site. So you can see it's predominantly grassland. There's some hedging and scrub, and you can see the grass verge directly directly adjacent to the existing ramp. And then there are 6 existing young trees on site, white beam trees. The landscape proposals are for the proposals. So this is the car park here, and this plan shows the soft landscaping proposals, which include a new narrow verge soft landscaping, which you can see here, and that would include 9 replacement white beam trees planting along the site edge. There'd also be planted wildflower mix and hedgerow within that soft landscaping area in between the new car park and the existing ramp. The landscaping proposals also include the replanting of the existing 6 trees on site, and they would be planted outside of the site but within the wider stadium site, and details of that are required by condition. The landscaping proposals also include a green wall, which I'll show on a visual coming up. First of all, this is a visual just to show the appearance of the car park from up close and to give an idea of the proposed materials. So the car park would consist of concrete columns with silver metal fins over the top on the upper levels, and then silver roller shutters at ground floor level where the access to those level 0 car parking spaces would be. This is the coach parking, and the other materials include polycarbonate cladding for the stair and lift shaft and the footbridge. This is the proposed northeast elevation. So this is the view from within the opposite the concourse, from stadium view. So you can see the roller shutters there. This is the view from the southwest. So from the pedestrian approach that we saw earlier, up those stairs from the station. This is the northwest elevation. This is the southeast elevation. So this is the proposed green wall, as mentioned in the landscaping proposals, but can be seen on the visual here. So on the elevation facing the existing ramp and facing towards the University of Brighton site, which is on the other side of the ramp. So to give an idea of the visibility of the proposals from further afield, this is a viewpoint from within Stammer Park, so quite a fair distance away. You can see the viewpoint here towards the site here. So you can see here that it would only be the car park itself wouldn't be mostly visible, but the footbridge and the stair lift shaft would be slightly visible on this side of the stadium. Nearer to the site, but from a similar angle or viewpoint, is the viewpoint from Falmouth Station itself. So from the bridge above the railway line, and you can see towards the stadium. So again, you would partially see the upper level of the car park, but mainly again the lift stair shaft and the footbridge here. This is a visual from closer up. So again, taking the approach from Falmouth Station and onto the concourse itself. So you can see the proposed car park there, and that's where that photo is taken from. This is from the other side. So the Village Way Highway leads to the private road, and then the private ramp of the football club and the application site here. So this visual is taken from the private ramp of Village Way. So you can see the car park itself, because of the land level changes from the application site to this point, you wouldn't actually see the car park itself, but only the lift stair shaft and the footbridge. Going down that private road, so closer up now, again, the bulk or the structure of the car park itself would not be visible from this angle, but the rooftop car parking would be visible from up close. These are the proposed close-up visuals, just giving again some more idea of what the appearance would be like from within the concourse. In terms of representations received during the planning application, only one letter or objection has been received. In terms of key considerations, the principal development, the proposed car parking would provide additional parking and improved access for staff for the existing major sporting venue. The impact on visual amenities of the surrounding area, as shown in those proposed visuals. The design appearance of the proposal, which includes the materials that have evolved since pre-application stage. The impact on neighbouring amenity, which is limited given the context and surroundings. Impact on highways and access, and this has included considerations of the loss of Bennettsfield car parking spaces, which was a significant loss of car parking spaces, and the proposal for 43 parking spaces goes a small way to re-providing some spaces that have previously been lost for the stadium. The impact on ecology and biodiversity and considerations given to the proposed replacement landscaping on the site, but would also include some purchasing of off-site, which is secured via condition and Section 106. This shows the Section 106 obligations that are secured through the recommendation, which includes employment and training, but also the securing of biodiversity net gain through monitoring obligations. So in terms of conclusion, the application is recommended minded to grant, subject to those Section 106 obligations being agreed and finalised in the Section 106. And the conclusions are that the recent loss of 522 car parking bays at Bennettsfield has had a detrimental impact on parking within the site, and the proposals provide some improved access for staff in terms of proximity to the stadium itself. There's improved access for users and employees in that regard. The design is considered acceptable and improved on since the discussions at pre-application stage, and the visibilities of the stadium would mainly be from those close proximity visuals that can be seen. And consultees raised no objections, and there was considered to be no adverse impact on the public highway. And so the recommendations are minded to grant, subject to that Section 106.
Thanks, Wayne. Who do we have in terms of representations today? Do you know who's here?
We have the agent.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
But he's only here to answer questions.
Yes. No, I understand. I wasn't sure who was available because I know I can see a list of people on Teams over there, but I don't know who they are. So. Sorry, I'm just trying to work out who's actually in the room. We do have a representative for the agent. So, yeah, let's go to the questions. Councillor Cattell.
Thank you, Chair. With the student development that's happening on the Bennett's car park, do we have any indication of where they will have their site hutting and their material storage and so on? Because I'm wondering whether that will have an impact as well on the parking. And obviously, while this development is going on, if we approve it, it's going to be a bit messy on the site. So I wondered if we've got details of how the construction works will be taken. Going forward. Sorry.
Yes, we didn't request those details as part of the application. It may be the case that because although works have commenced on site, as I understand it, it may be very kind of preliminary works that have commenced on site, and so in terms of the Bennettsfield development, so the full works haven't commenced on site. So it is possible that obviously the consent is with Lewes District Council. There's likely to be a planning condition in relation to that. Whether that has been the details of how the construction would work on site, whether that's been agreed, I don't know offhand. The planning agent may be aware of that, but as I said, I think because the works haven't commenced proper at this point, it's possible that hasn't been confirmed and agreed.
I could always look it up on Lewis's website, planning website, to see, because they might have been asked to put a construction management plan in for up front, which I know when I worked at Lewis, we often did ask for big developments to have upfront plans. Anyway, thank you very much, mate.
Yeah, just to say, following on from that, we do have for the proposals for the this planning application, we are conditioning a construction environment management plan as part of this proposal. So in terms of how it would work, and if works are ongoing for the student housing development, then it's likely that the details for the SEMP would need to work with what's happening on the other side of the stadium.
Thank you. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of things here. So I think it's a terrible shame that the public have lost 522 parking spaces and been replaced by 43, and 43 for directors and staff. But hey, I appreciate that 522 wasn't our gift to do anything about. But and Wayne, you spent a decent amount of time with us in the briefing, explaining how the vehicles will get access to this car park. But would you mind just running through that with me again? I'd just like to understand. I'm thinking of the safety aspect, which I do appreciate would be the responsibility of the football club, but I think that might be useful for those who weren't in the briefing. And can access be gained from Brighton Uni as well as, what was it called, Village Road or something? Thanks.
At the application site. The application site is here, and Bennettsfield, which we were just talking about, which is the proposed student housing development here. So just just to clarify, first of all, that this Bennettsfield area is not in the land ownership of the football club. Car Park A is, as well as the coach and bus car parking here, and where the broadcasters use this space on match days. So all of that is in the stadium's ownership, but Bennettsfield is not. And so the lease ran out in 2021 and it ceased to be used for car parking spaces in association with the stadium. The stadium itself and majority of the car parking areas as existing are accessed via the A27. So you come off the A27 and you access them via Village Way. So this is the public highway of Village Way. And you can access the car parking areas here via Village Way. And vehicles, when necessary, can access the concourse perimeter around the stadium via that way as well, coming off Village Way and accessing into the concourse from that area here. In terms of the context with the application site itself, the access to the car parking spaces will predominantly, although technically could be accessed via the concourse via that route, the access would be via the Village Way public highway, which then leads into the private road, which is owned by the University of Brighton. So it's under the ownership of the Falmer campus, which gives access to the Falmer campus itself here and here, but then also leads to the stadium's land ownership, which starts on the rampway around about here. And then the car parking spaces, level 0, would be accessed, as mentioned before, where those roller shutters are proposed, so off the concourse itself. The middle deck of the car parking would be accessed via the ramp and via a new access way approximately here. And then the top deck of the car park would be accessed via at the top of the private ramp, just around about here. And then in terms of vehicle, there's no vehicular access from this way because there's the change in land levels, and so there's just the pedestrian route via the stairs and also the fully accessible ramp there. So there's no vehicular access from that way.
Answer your question, Councillor?
Not quite. So the bit of Village Way that's going towards the university, are you saying that cars won't access it from that way? So, and that they won't be driving around the concourse, they'll only hit the concourse when they get to what looks like a roundabout there?
So yes, yeah, that would be the case. So the top decks would be accessed via Village Way. I mean, there is an access, as I said, because you've got an access onto the concourse from these roundabouts of Village Way, but the main access would be from the other side.
Obviously, as we were discussing before, we want to avoid cars and loads of football supporters. So if they were coming in from that part of Village Way that goes to the university, it would be much safer, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just to clarify about the difference between, so this is the proposed use of the car park is for staff, employees, and directors of the football club. It would be used on match days. But the intention is for it to be used day to day as well for employees. So in those circumstances, on non-match days, there's very little pedestrian activity in and around the area where the car park is proposed. So there's not thought to be any issues with gaining vehicular access around these areas at those times. On match days, a very different scenario, and the intention, obviously you wouldn't be able to get vehicles easily in and out of the car park during the busier times, close to the events or football matches that take place at the stadium. So the intention is for the car parks not to be used an hour before or an hour after the stadium is in use. Now, obviously, those times, maybe 2 hours before, are still going to have people and fans and visitors to the stadium in those areas. The likelihood is that the majority of car park users would be there before crowds start to arrive. But if the case is that someone may use the car park or gain access to the car park, say an hour and a half before kickoff, there would be stewards in place, and that's already the case because the area is already used for coach parking. So there's already stewards in place there when coaches arrive. The awaiting coaches park there, so there's already stewards in place, and all of this is, to clarify, from a planning perspective, all of this is happening off the public highway, so it's all within the stadium's ownership in terms of those vehicular movements and that kind of thing. So ultimately, it's for the applicant to ensure safe use of that car park. But from perspective of clarifying the position, the details of how it would be used on match days would be provided in an update of the travel management plan, and that's secured by a planning condition.
Did I see you had your hand up, Councillor Theobald?
Yeah. I was going to ask, the University of Brighton, their building is sort of quite near, it's just behind on the map. Just wondered how close it was and whether it affects them at all, or has there been any complaints because it will be, visible? That's one of the questions. And I'd like to ask, if this is passed today, how long will it likely to be built? Would it be sort of out of action part of it for people, to walk around there and things like that? And there's another, is it fully disabled, this car park for any disabled? But can they actually access and get, go from one to another? Is it fully disabled?
Yeah, so I'll answer those questions in reverse order. I'll just get the plans up again for the application. Yeah, so the disabled bays, one is located at the ground floor level, so level access, and anyone using that parking bay would have, any staff members using that parking bay would have level access onto the concourse and then into the stadium where the offices are in that west stand. And then the other disabled parking bay is on the rooftop level, just here, and there is level access. You can enter the car park from that ramp there, and then anyone leaving their car to go to the stadium would use the lift up to the footbridge, and that would give access to the stadium from there. And the disabled car parking spaces are secured by condition 21. In terms of your other queries, sorry, can you remind me which building you're referring to in terms of impact on?
I was told it was just where it's being built, just behind us buildings, and that's University of Brighton, I believe, buildings there. Student buildings, was it? It looks on the little map that was sent to me. It looks as if it's very close, but I don't know how close it is.
Yeah. Yeah, so the Falmouth campus is the closest residential properties to the car park. However, the nearest building, which is this one, doesn't have bedroom student rooms within. It's a building used for other things, either teaching or communal facilities, but it doesn't actually have bedrooms in that building closest to the car park site itself. So the actual residential parts of the campus are much further back, and so deemed to be unlikely to be affected. Oh yes, the question about the build in terms of when that might be. The applicant hasn't clarified exactly when works would commence, but they've been keen to get the planning application in during this during these summer months. But they haven't clarified exactly when works will take place, although I understand it will be as soon as possible that they intend to commence those works.
I really want to know how long it would sort of take, whether it would interfere with the football when that's on. That was a question, really, but perhaps you don't know that.
Yeah, so as before, in terms of impact on the operations within and around the site, from a planning perspective, we would seek to, if works were taking place during the football season and when events are taking place on site, we would secure details of how that would work as part of the SEMP required by condition, which would it kind of outline how building disruption would be kept to a minimum, and to ensure that the surrounding areas can still be used if events and football matches are taking place during those times.
Thank you, Councillor Shanks.
Anyway, I was just trying to find it. So when this was originally built, I think one of the ideas is that you've got a train station, you've got good bus services, so you shouldn't really need a huge amount of parking. And it's taken 4 years to come back. They've lost 500 places, and now they're coming back with only like. So I don't think that really is like, oh, we can't use that, so we're going to build this. I don't know if they've had meanwhile use, but I suppose it's just, we're trying to limit car journeys there, because it does really have big impact on the roads going the A27. I know it's only a small number, but it has. I don't know what was happened in the beginning, and whether there's a sort of number that you would notionally expect to have for a stadium of this size in any, in terms of car parking overall. Because looking down on this, they've had an expansion of the numbers. There's in the previous applications in 2013, they varied the occasion and added extra car parking, and now they're coming back for extra car parking. I mean, my other question. So, I suppose it's like, it is a question. I suppose it's like, is that how do we have a sort of view about how much is appropriate in this situation? Because anyway, I mean, the other thing is the trees. So you're taking away 6 trees, I think. And although they're going to be replanted, if they're quite big, that's going to be difficult. I mean, hopefully the bioecologist has told them they've got how to do that. But I just wonder why we were taking them away if we couldn't have preserved them on the existing. If you're planting new trees, can't you just, preserve the ones you've got on the existing bank? Anyway.
Yeah, so to answer your question about the situation with parking in the last few years, so Bennettsfield has been lost, but that was back in 2021 when that lease ceased. In terms of what their requirements are, there is a condition on the original stadium consent that requires the club to provide a minimum of 1,500 spaces and a maximum of 3,000 to be available for persons attending events and matches. And the applicants clarified that when full availability of match day parking is the situation, the club currently provides 2,219 spaces for visitors, fans, and also employees and match day officials and that kind of thing. So there is a requirement for them to meet those parameters as part of the condition. They are providing that, but because of the loss of Bennettsfield and those over 200 spaces, over 500 spaces, they have been seeking ways of trying to increase in other ways and looking at other off-site car parking areas that they can use, such in the same way that they use the Southern Water car park off-site, which you can see on that map there. They've also in recent years they've increased the number of car parking spaces at Car Park B, which is the bridge car park, which you can see on that visual there as well. So there's been a number of the applicant looking at ways in which they can try and recoup some of the car parking spaces lost, because they are bound to provide that minimum number of 1,500 spaces, which they are doing, but obviously they don't own all these sites. Then so what the applicant's intention is to try and provide spaces within their land ownership that they obviously have full control of. In terms of the trees, I mean I don't know the answer to whether the existing trees could have been replanted. There may be reasons for that. It is going to be a different scenario for those trees in terms of the fact that all of that area is going to be excavated, but there's going to be a new landscaping strip. So on this photo, you can see the trees that we're talking about. They're not the large trees in the background there. They are on the other side of the ramp, and they are out of they're on the university's site ownership. The trees in question are these smaller trees in the foreground at the top of the bank here. And I don't know whether it's possible for those trees to have been replanted in those positions, but the benefits of what they are doing is that that there would be a provision of a net increase in trees, same species of trees on site, but also the benefit of having those trees being replanted elsewhere across the wider site. And it is the stadium doesn't have, obviously, as you can see from the visuals that we've seen today, there's a lot of car parking, a lot of hard landscaping. So any benefits that there can be for replanting in the wider site officers have taken the opinion that that is a benefit for the wider site, but also still providing some soft landscaping on the existing site.
Thank you. Sorry. I mean, how do we monitor that? Because, these trees they might not survive. So if they don't survive, we've presumably got a condition they have to plant a different tree. But I mean, who monitors that? Do we go up and have a look and see if they're
Yeah, so the tree planting scheme for the new for the so the trees planted for replanted on the wider site would be details of exactly where they're going to be placed, and also ensuring that they are maintained and managed during those early years is secured by condition, as well as the full details of the landscaping proposals, which would include the details of the trees, and also the securing management of those, and also ensuring that they would be replanted if there was any issues of them being damaged or diseased during that first 5 years. So it's condition 7 for the replanting of the trees, and condition 10 is for the landscaping scheme, which would include the details of the new trees on site.
Councillor Sheard.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a couple of questions to run through quickly. So just following on from what Councillor Robinson was saying earlier, in relation to the fan zone, which I know is being built closer to the railway line on the site, will movement of traffic, especially on that ground level, be permissible during the use of the fan zone? Because I can imagine fans coming up that way.
Yeah, so where I'll just share my screen again. So we've got the map in front of us. So what I'll show is that where the fan zone is, there's that difference in land levels between the application site and the fan zone. So you've only got pedestrian access in between the two. You haven't got any vehicular access, and so there wouldn't be any issue with vehicles in and around the fan zone, because that wouldn't be the access points to get to the new car park.
So did you understand that, Councillor? You did. Okay. So the fan zone is at the other side of the stairs, at the bottom of the steps, top.
Okay, so you can just about glimpse the area of the fan zone. So I think that this Google Maps photo was taken during construction of the fan zone. So you can see the fan zone and just glimpse it in the top there. So that's directly in front of the pedestrian and fan approach from the station. So it's in fairly close proximity to the car park, but in terms of any vehicle operations, they're not going to be affected, or the operation of the fan zone isn't going to be affected by any vehicle movements, because there's only pedestrian stairs and pedestrian ramp access between two sites. There is an access ramp around here which the coaches use, but that's already existing. So coaches will enter that area there for coach away coaches that park in that area, so they have close proximity to the stadium. But that's already an existing coach movement. So that's unchanged, other than the fact that the coach parking would have a canopy over the top of it, so there wouldn't be any change from the vehicular movements in and around the fan scene from the fan zone from existing.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Councillor? Any more questions? Can we move to debate? Who would like to open the debate? Councillor Theobald.
Thank you, Chair. Well, it's a shame there's not anybody here from the football, but there is. I thought
That's what I was asking.
They're
Because
not going to speak then.
no, it's there to answer questions.
All right.
That's why I was just clarifying in the beginning, because I haven't got a
today.
list of anybody who's appearing today. So
Yes. I'd like to have that question answered properly about if they get this pass today, how long will it actually take to build? That's what I wanted to know, really. Thank you.
Okay, let's address the agent. Daniel
Frisbee.
Frisbee. Okay, we won't go to debate just yet.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have that information to hand, I'm afraid. I mean, that's to be worked out as and when the final design is developed in terms of the built design. So, I mean, all I can say is obviously the club are highly aware of wanting to maintain their operations whilst the work is ongoing, and it's in their best interest to do so. And given that this is quite a tucked away site to the back of the West End, I think it's unlikely that there'll be any significant ramifications. Obviously, having developed the fan zone very recently as well, they're very used to sort of moving in and out depending on what's going on at the stadium on a match day and bringing in the construction site. And so, yeah, if that's any assurance I can give you. But in terms of the actual length of the construction projects, I don't know to hand.
Thank you. Shall we move to debate? Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. I think they developed this, they designed this rather in keeping with the area, and it's laid out nicely against that kind of hill. They're replacing trees, they're moving 6 trees to another area. Shame it's only 43. I would have liked to have seen perhaps more disabled parking in there, really for football goers actually, because it looks like the access to the ground will be absolutely fantastic for somebody in a wheelchair. So it's a shame there's not more of that, but of course there's limited space, isn't there? So, but overall I think it's quite nice and I'll be supported it. Thank you.
Councillor Shears.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to admit I do have a bit of knowledge of the site, being the ward councillor for the football stadium. But I'm not wearing that hat today. But I do think this is a very nicely designed. I think it's the design itself is rather ingenious, using the natural slope of the land to create the multi-storey car park instead of putting the ramp within the car park itself. I think that is a very clever use of the land they have to work in. I also think it's a really good idea to encourage on-site parking for staff, with as was shown within the site, the wider site map, Bridge Car Park, which was labelled Car Park B on the site, and Southern Water, all has a high demand on the day, and a lot of pressure is put on the surrounding community. So trying to bring staff onto the site who are having to drive there for one reason or another can only be good and positive for the surrounding community. And I think overall it will be very positive for the area and very positive for the stadium.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Theobald.
Thank you. Well, as has been said by the councillor over there, thanks. It would have been nice to have kept some of the existing trees and hedges, but I think this is a very sensible idea, especially as they've lost the 522 spaces at Bennett's Field. This would actually free up spaces from the mainly the car park A, I think, and a few of the nearer car parks for other people. The South Downs National Park seemed to be okay about this. They were worried about the sensitive appearance of the lighting, but that seems to have been resolved. This, I think, it's an improvement for them, and it's a good design and a good facility for the stadium. So I just think it's a very good thing to do, and whoever's decided on this, it's an excellent thing to happen. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm inclined to agree with my colleagues. I think it is a good design. It does seem when they've lost 500 to only build 45 is quite not really filling the gap, but I'm sure that they're working on that. There's so many conditions in there about biodiversity and the green wall and all that sort of thing, so I'm feeling reassured by those, and I'm going to approve. So should we go to the vote? All those in favour? That's unanimous.
That's a unanimous, actually, agreed. Thank you very much.
Thanks all. Did anybody want to take a break, or should we go on to the next application? 30 seconds. Let's move on with item B, which is 295 Dyke Road, BH 2025/00936. And we have Jack, the planning officer, here to introduce it. Over to you, Jack. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Here we are. This application is at 295 Dyke Road. And so it's a reserved matters application following on from an outline approval that was granted a number of years ago for the approval. So we're looking now at the layout, scale, appearance and landscaping. It's for a single new dwelling, which the bits that were approved were the principle of subdividing the site and creating a single dwelling house in the rear garden, and the access was also approved. So this is the location, the site location. So we have number 295, which is the existing dwelling. And as you can see up here in red, we've got the access running up the side and space for the dwelling in the rear of the site. To the rear of the actual application site, you've got the tennis courts, and elsewhere along Dyke Road, we have other dwelling houses. It's not. This shows the footprint of the proposed dwelling, and in grey, you can see the approved access as well. And here's a satellite of the site. The garden itself has a number of trees at the end there. Here's another 3D visual of the site. We can see there's the three houses closest to it. We've got 293 at the bottom there, then the application house 295, and then 297 at the top with the solar panels. And again, we've got the tennis courts directly to the rear of the site. This is a photo from Dyke Road, where this the gap between these two dwellings would be where the approved access would go. And here's some site photos from within the site. This is the most substantial tree that's in the centre of the site. It is proposed to be lost within the application because it's so central to the site that it will be challenging to develop the site at all and keep that tree. But Arboriculture have confirmed they're happy with the loss in principle if it can be mitigated with replacement planting. Here's some other photos taken from within the site. And here's a proposed site plan with some of the most important measurements shown. We've got, you can see the front of the proposed dwelling is around 20 metres distant from the backs of 297 and 295, and there's a gap of, I believe, about 16 metres between the closest window and the windows of 293. This is the proposed ground floor. We have the garage here for vehicle parking, and there is a further parking opportunities here and cycle parking here. There'll be a private garden to the rear of the dwelling. There's the first floor plan. We've got a total of 4 bedrooms. We've got several windows here are obscure glaze. These are the ones that face onto or at the backs of number 295 that are considered the most sensitive. We've also got a number of roof lights at the each side of the dwelling, which will also be obscured. So this is the second application for reserve matters we've received. We had another one, BH 2024-03098, which was refused earlier this year. The outline you can see here in the background shows that proposal, which was substantially larger, and it was refused on grounds. It was generally around scale and the impact it would have on local residents for overbearance and privacy. So we can see here this one is about 2.25 metres shorter, and the eaves height has also changed as well. This is the rear dwelling with outlines of the neighbouring dwellings in the background. There's the side elevations. And a site section which shows that the proposed dwelling house is on slightly lower ground than the main dwellings that front Dyke Road. And these are just comparison elevations. So the one on the right was the refusal from last year. Well, it was refused earlier this year. It was received last year. So we had 9 representations objecting to the proposal over the principle of development, and it sets an unacceptable precedent. It's too large and too close to the dwellings on Dyke Road, harm to neighbouring amenity through privacy, being overbearing, causing overshadowing and causing a noise nuisance, that it's overdevelopment of the site, there's a loss of boundary planting, impacts on the character of the area, and that the development does not help the housing shortage. The key considerations are the design and appearance of the dwelling, the acceptability of the landscaping, the standard of accommodation that will be offered to future residents, the impact on the amenity of local residents, and the impact on highway safety. So the principle of a new dwelling on this site has been agreed with the outline permission and it is not up for consideration as part of this application. The reasons for refusal of the previous application is considered they have been overcome with the significant reductions in scale, and it's no longer considered to be overdevelopment of the site. There would be some impact on neighbouring amenity, but this would be limited and not significant enough to warrant permission being refused. The design and landscaping and impact on the character of the area would be acceptable. And additional weight should be given to the delivery of housing, which is a requirement of the MPPF. There would be a net gain of one dwelling house as a result of this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Newey, good afternoon. Would you like to take a seat? So, yes, you press the bottom right, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Am I right in thinking that you're a neighbour?
Yes, I'm the owner of 293,
Okay.
which is the house to the south of it, directly to the south.
Okay, terrific. So you'll have 3 minutes. Unfortunately, our timer's not working, so our the acting Democratic Services Manager is going to time you, but he'll give you a 30-second warning before the time runs out, if that's all right. When you're ready.
Right. I'm here on behalf of the 12 neighbours who have consistently objected to the proposals. We acknowledge that the outline is slightly smaller than before, but our objections still stand. We believe it is inappropriate and sets a dangerous precedent. Our biggest concerns are overdevelopment. That's the footprint, the scale and the height are overbearing. The loss of privacy, the front windows still look directly into our bedrooms. And overshadowing, the new house is still close to our boundaries. And on this point in particular, as I say, I own and live with my wife at 293 Dyke Road. We both work from home all the time. We're in our mid-70s, but we're still working full time. The access road that is to be built runs inches away from the north side of our house. And that was shown on the plan earlier on. It's right up against the side of our house. And our house is an arts and crafts house. It was designed and built by the renowned Sussex architect Harold George Turner, and it's listed in Brighton history, the people who built Brighton and Hove. I'm very concerned at the constant back and forth of diggers, bulldozers and lorries mere inches away from the wall, the foundations, the fabric of our house, and importantly, the leaded light and stained glass windows. And it's going to be well over a year, this disruption, because the actual nature of the land, it slopes right the way down. In addition to a very large tree and other trees, there's an enormous swimming pool, which has completely gone rotten, which is going to have to be dug out. And it's on various levels. The site preparation is going to take at least a year alone. Then there's the building. And that's an awful lot of disruption inches away from where we live. They say in the plans that there's going to be an erection of a thin wood fence, as stated in the plans. This will provide little or no protection at all. And I think a boundary brick wall needs to be built along this side of the border from the front of my house to the rear of my house to at least provide some form of protection against the disruption, the noise and the damage that these lorries, diggers and builders. 30 seconds. Right. In addition, I'm also very concerned that the established trees on the border between 295 and 293 my house, which provide screening from the proposed new house, some of them will be taken down. And therefore the screening goes and the privacy problem becomes even worse. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Newey. We also have Simon Barham, who is the agent for the application online. So, committee members, would you like to ask some questions?
Sorry. Who does he? Oh, I'm so sorry. Apparently Simon Baron's going to speak. I do apologise. Hello, Simon.
Hello.
Sorry, I'm whizzing straight past you. Would you like to give us 3 minutes? Again, you'll get a 30-second warning from the
Thank you.
Democratic Services. Sorry, I do apologise.
No worries. So, as you've heard, the application before you is for an approval of reserved matters where the principle of development and the means of access have already been approved under the outline planning permission. The outline planning permission also included an indication of the size of proposed house, which showed a house that was going to be 1 metre from each of the site's north and south boundaries. That's to the left and right of the site as you're looking in plan view. The reserved matters application shows a significantly reduced proposal. The main house will be chalet style, so 1.5 metres stories in height, and will be positioned between just under 4 metres and just over 5 metres in from the side boundaries, so considerably more than was originally envisaged. To the south, there is also a single-storey garage on the side of the house, and that will be 2.2 metres away from the south boundary. And as you've also heard, the house will be located on lower land. With regard to the potential for overshadowing of gardens, this is very limited and certainly not at a level that would conflict with planning policy DM20. Members should note that the guidance on the scale of new development of new buildings is provided in the BRE Good Practice document, Site Layout Planning for Daylight and Sunlight. That document advises that new development should not breach a 43-degree line taken from a point 1.6 metres above ground level at the site's boundaries with neighbours. If you measure the plans on that basis, you find that the relevant angle to the north, south and east boundaries are 30 degrees, 29 degrees and 34 degrees, so all significantly lower than the 43 degrees, which is the notional upper limit. In reality, those angles will be even less than what is considered there, because with new boundary treatments, they're actually going to be higher than the 1.6 that you measure from for the BRE. With regard to overlooking, the report at 10.10 to 10.15 summarises this completely, and they will note that where there are windows of any concern, there is a planning condition recommending that they be obscure glazed. Overall, it can be seen that the new house is designed to assimilate well within its surroundings. Some impact on neighbours is to be expected, but as confirmed in policy DM20, such impact has to be unacceptable before there is an issue with adopted planning policy. With the scale of the building being within BRE guidelines and planning conditions to control privacy, it is clear that the proposed house will be acceptable with regard to policy DM20 and its impact on neighbours. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, I can now ask councillors if they have any questions for the agent or the neighbour. Councillor Shanks.
So, in terms of the access road, is there any other way of doing this development, i.e. from the other side, by the 20th level? Because I think that sounds like that's one of the major concerns about this. I mean, maybe it's a question to the agent. And whether they've considered what the applicant was asking, not what the resident was asking for in terms of an extra boundary wall by their house.
With regard to the access, that's already been approved.
It's for construction, I mean. I know there will be access.
Yeah.
It's the construction that people are worried about.
For most, you can ask for a condition. I don't know if there's a condition on there already. Jack can probably answer, but you can ask for a condition requiring a construction environment management plan, and that would show provisions for controls, over noise during the course of development. It's impossible to have a silent building site, and normally in planning terms, disturbance during construction is a sort of an accepted element rather than a sort of a material consideration as to whether you say yes or no to a development. With regard to a sort of enhanced boundary, so I think the neighbour was talking about having a brick boundary rather than a fence boundary. I'm sure that that's something that our client could look at I think there's a condition requiring approval of boundary treatments, so that could get picked up by way of the submission to clear that condition if you're minded to grant the current application. So probably, sorry, because I was rambling a bit there, I think a condition on a construction management plan and a condition on boundary treatments would get you to the point that you're asking.
Thank you, Simon. Let's bring Jack in on this. Perhaps he can respond. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So currently we don't have a condition for a construction environment management plan. We do not typically ask for them on a development of this scale, but if it's something the committee would like to consider, they may request a condition be added. With regards to boundary treatments, they are approved as close board fencing under condition 7, but that may be something that you may wish to seek further conditions on if alternative boundary treatments are something you consider to be necessary. Another point I would add is we don't typically ask for boundary treatments to be implemented until prior to occupation, so it wouldn't be something we typically ask to be constructed prior to any construction vehicles entering the site, so early in the development process.
Councillor Earthy?
Thank you. Well, I think my question is to you, Chair, and the officers. Are there any conflicts with the neighbourhood plan? Because this case is rather similar to one we had in the east of the city some time ago. I just wonder, is there a neighbourhood plan for the area? And does this? It's not. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, just to clarify, no, there is no neighbourhood plan for this area of the city.
Councillor Theobald?
Yeah, it was mentioned about the trees on the boundary. I presume that's a side boundary. Are they all going to go?
Thank you. I've got, let's see, I was just looking at a copy of the arboriculture method statement that I'll attempt to show on my screen. Here we are. So let's see, this is a scheme for the tree protection fencing, and this is a tree survey for the site. So the trees and hedges along this side boundary are to be removed.
Okay. Are they replacing?
Here we are. This is the replacement planting schedule. We've got, let's see, along here we've got BN, SA, and AC. So with BN, we've got Betula nigra, and we've got SA. So I won't attempt to pronounce all of these, but we do have, there is multiple species of trees being replanted that arboriculture officers have confirmed are acceptable. In terms of privacy, it's also worth pointing out that this boundary along here, there's no side-facing windows, and the only roof light is secured, shut to a height of 1.7 metres internally, and be fitted with obscure glazing. There is another window here that isn't shown on this plan because this is showing the old roof layout. But there is one window here that faces this, but we do consider it is a sufficient distance to that it is not required to be fixed shut and obscure glazed.
Councillor Cattell?
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I just wanted to ask a question. The trees on the site aren't protected by, it's not a conservation area, no TPOs. So if those trees could be cut down at any time without requiring any consents. Okay, just wanted to make that clear. The other thing is, I look back on the minutes of the meeting in 2022, I think, when the outline was actually approved. And I see from the minutes that it actually wasn't called for discussion. I mean, I'm not sure if you were here at the time. I think, and I'm not sure if Simon was the agent. I think it was somebody else. And I also, and I've just asked our neighbour here. Presumably, you objected in writing to the application, the first one, but because you didn't ask to speak, or none of your neighbours asked to speak, the application wasn't called for discussion. And I'm just, I'm just surprised that you didn't jump on that so that you could come along and speak and
you have a
object.
question, please?
Well, it's a question. I'm just asking a question. It's why did you not come to object in person to the original application? Because it seems to me now that what you're doing is actually objecting to something that's already been approved.
Good, I'm on. To answer your first point, we didn't know about any meeting back in 1922. In 2022, we weren't advised of one or anything. We certainly would have turned up had we been advised of one.
On the objection, on the letter that you're sent informing you of a planning application, it does say that if you want to speak, please let the Democratic Services team know. Because obviously we don't send out notifications of the meetings, otherwise we would be bankrupt because of the number of
I'm not
stamp.
sure that
But I'm just
what happened in 2022.
No, I'm just thinking. I just wanted to understand why the objectors didn't sort of come in force.
But I think he's answered that as best he can. Thank you. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you. So back to Jack then. So we understand that the neighbours are not very happy. He has got some concerns, hasn't he, with lovely stained glass windows, etc., about vibration. So through construction. So how do we go about then doing the couple of things that the resident asked for, which is the construction management plan and adding some condition to have a brick built wall? How do we, because that may influence our decision. Is that possible? Thank you.
I was actually just asking Katie in terms of sort of legal advice. We want to sort of see how it pans out. I mean, the problem with the wall is the fact that, as Jack has explained, it's not something that you would build a wall before any of the work is done. Am I right in saying that, Jack? That you would do it at the end. So.
One thing you could do is, with a construction environment management plan, would be to specify that temporary protective walling be installed during the development process.
Could we also perhaps ask the agent, because, obviously, Mr. Newey, you've got a delicate house with leaded windows and so forth. I mean, we need to make sure in conditions that obviously any work that is done is not going to start causing damage to a historical house.
Simon. Peter was an expert on the work of Harold George Turner and was writing a book on him and was campaigning for the Turner houses in Brighton to be looked after and protected.
So you couldn't really wish for a better agent then?
No.
Councillor Shanks, do you have a question?
Sorry. I mean, I think what we do is we propose a condition and then we vote on that condition, and then if it's agreed, then it goes through.
Thank you.
Yes. So if they could build this wall before development, was the question, was it, that we can ask Simon?
I think
already saying that we're not going to build a wall before.
Well, I thought that was something we could ask for them to do. It's part of the site management.
If I could just come in, it's whether you consider that's necessary to make the development acceptable. And usually, as Jack's pointed out, we wouldn't require permanent boundary treatment to be put in place before any other developments taking place, particularly as this is the main construction access. So I would have thought, just in terms, you don't want to start coming very close to a very newly built wall. So it's just, firstly, we don't know if it's practical. We don't know what type or size of vehicles are going to have to go down there to construct this. So I'd just be hesitant to, I think we could perhaps condition it as part of the permanent landscaping works, but unless Simon's able to confirm that now, I don't think we should be conditioning it pre all other work.
But if I'm right, I mean, Simon, correct me if I'm wrong, you were saying that you could put some sort of protection in place, which would not be a permanent brick wall, am I right?
I think you could look at protection. I don't think you'd want to construct a brick wall and then carry out development. Don't forget also, excuse me, the accessway will require a degree of excavation because it obviously has to be built up. And because of that and its proximity to the boundary, a party wall agreement will be needed between all interested parties. That will include a survey carried out at the applicant's cost, but with a surveyor that the neighbour chooses to confirm the current state of the building, and that becomes a set in stone position. So if there are any unfortunate things occurring, that all comes back through the party wall agreement, and that puts a sort of an air of control. And as I say, because the access road will be an act of construction with excavation, then the Party Wall Act will apply.
Could we also just confirm then about the construction management plan, please? I'm not sure I fully understand that we are going to have one of those, and how do we go about getting one?
I think in the report before you, it wasn't considered necessary to recommend that a construction environmental management plan be imposed by condition, given the small scale of the scheme. It's only one dwelling.
Yeah.
They tend to be imposed where perhaps you've got a major scheme, or if you've got a particularly sensitive road or safety issue. However, saying that, if you as councillors in your planning balance consider that it is necessary in this case to protect amenity, that is something you can add if you vote on it as an additional condition.
Do we have any more questions for the councillor?
In that case, I would propose that condition of the site.
Could I ask a question? Do we have any more questions, or am I all right to go ahead? I just had one for Jack. One of the things I wanted to ask, because I seem to recall in the briefing that we were told that 20 metres is the usual sort of distance from one building to the next. Is that not right? Because I think it was mentioned that there was 16 metres to the window of Mr. Newey's house at 293.
We don't have a set standard for what is an acceptable distance between windows. So I just commented that the front of the new dwelling and the rear of 295 is around 20 metres.
Yeah.
The distance between the new dwelling and Mr. Newey's property is around 16 metres.
I thought this had come up at the briefing.
It was raised by council.
Oh, was it? Okay. Okay. And then could I also just ask about Mr. New has mentioned that, you know, this sets a precedent. I was trying to look at the street. Is it the first one that has done this in their garden? Because I thought it looked like there was somebody a bit further down.
There is a relatively new dwelling at 285 Dyke Road, which is to the south of the site. But every application is assessed on its own merits. So whether or not we approve or refuse this application, it won't set any precedent for future development. Also, with backland development, you've got to consider that not every site will be appropriate for a backland dwelling, because you need the space and also you need the access down the side of the house, which a lot of dwellings don't have.
Thank you. So we'll ignore that then. I mean, yes, it can't set a precedent anyway because there's one that's already been built. Oh, sorry, would you? Yes, go ahead.
There was something that in relation to the distance that you brought up just now, and I pointed this out in the recent set of objections, is that on the plans, my house was extended about 25, 30 years ago, and it doesn't show this on the plans, which reduces the distance between the front of the proposed house and my rear wall. And I did object to this on the most recent and also the ones before, and it's not been picked up. I'm sorry? Yes, it's on, yes.
Thank you. Yeah, no, this was raised during I believe, the refused application that we dealt with earlier this year after I came to visit your property. I'll just bring up the site plan again so we can see. Here we are. Here we are. So this is 293 here at the bottom. There is a single story element that comes out slightly further. This 16 metres is measuring from window to upper floor window, rather than rather otherwise I've done direct to the corner. But it is considered that showing the rear extension on that building is not necessary in terms of whether or not this plan is acceptable, because it lies outside of the site. Site visits were carried out to 293, 295 and 297. So in my assessment, I'm aware of the real life positioning of these houses. The ground floor windows are less vulnerable to overlooking than the first floor windows, because this measurement here is taken from top floor to top floor. It's not considered necessary for the ground floor extension to be added to this drawing to result in an acceptable development.
Thank you. Any more questions? Councillor Cattell.
Sorry, yeah, just seeing that again, I'm confused as to where the overlooking is going to be between the new house and 293. There's no direct overlooking, is there, as far as I can see on there?
So in the officer report, it details that. So these two, the grey squares shown on the drawing here are small dormer windows. We've got two here facing back towards Dyke Road. Both of them will be obscure glazed. This one is side facing and faces towards the curtilage for 293. We consider it's not necessary to obscure glaze that due to the distance between it and the side boundary. That's why we consider the impact on privacy to all of the dwellings to be acceptable, including 293.
Councillor Earth, did I miss you out? Did you? Oh, sorry. Any more questions, or shall we move on to debate?
So I would like to propose the condition that, yes, so I think we need to vote on that, don't we? That we have that we have a construction management plan. Is it debate first? Okay, sorry. Okay, well, I think it's just so that it's I mean, I don't know how these things work. Would you like to tell us what you want in your? Well, presumably that it's going to be, in discussion with other, the planning department, what's acceptable, but it would be like the hours of operation and how far from the building you can go, and when you do it and stuff. Presumably, I mean, I know, yeah, it's usually in larger things, but it is quite disruptive if you've got something being built at the back.
Yeah, we have a standard model condition that I think probably is quite reflective on what we put on the American Express Stadium as well. And that covers hours of use, measures to minimise disruption, and also dust suppression measures, the usual things that you'd expect. And we can add, if you want, details of temporary fencing.
Yes, and I think also we're quite mindful of the fact that we've got an arts and crafts building, that we want to make sure that his leaded windows, his historic leaded windows, are protected. Councillor Robinson.
I was just going to say the same. So I've experienced a party wall agreement in my own property, and I know how difficult it is to actually get anything back from that. I've had ceilings fall down and all sorts. So I think we need to make sure that whilst the party and wall agreement is the legal mechanism, I think some kind of physical mechanism to protect this property would be much appreciated in the management plan. Thank you.
Can I just ask our lawyer Katie to come in?
Just to clarify, the party wall agreement is outside the planning process, so it's separate. Yeah. So we're looking at what we control within the planning process here. Yeah. Thank you.
Anybody else like to contribute to the debate? So, Katie, could you give us some advice then on what we're voting on? So we want to add a condition.
I mean, you could carry on debating the application and then come back to this, or you can. No one wants to debate. Okay, so if there's nothing more to be said on the application regarding the debate, then you're looking at the proposed extra condition, which involves the addition of requiring a construction management plan, standard wording to be delegated to the head of planning in consultation with the proposer and seconder and the chair of planning may be the finalised wording. Then you need to vote on the principle of that. So you need a proposer and a seconder, and then we need to take a vote.
Okay. Councillor Shanks, am I right in thinking that you're happy to propose? And Councillor Robinson is seconding. Councillor Theobald, are you concerned about something? Councillor Theobald, are you concerned? No, we are in debate now. No, we moved on to debate because the legal advice was that we should be discussing it in debate, and then at the end of the debate we would come to a conclusion. My apologies if we're all slightly confused. Councillor Shears.
Sorry, just to clarify, can we just make sure we're all clear on what is going in the construction management plan before we propose it?
There is a template, and we are going to put conditions in.
Yeah.
Okay.
To clarify, what's in our standard SEMP condition are details of how the contractor will liaise with local residents, should there be any issues that need to be raised. The hours of construction need to be agreed with us, measures to minimise disturbance and dust and noise, measures to prevent mud and dust tracking onto the public highway. That's a standard thing as well. And we would often, it may not be for a house, but you can also ask for details of where their main they sometimes have construction compounds or have temporary buildings, site offices, that sort of thing can be controlled as well. And with the addition of details of temporary fencing. And I suppose we need to be clear why you're requesting this additional condition. Is it primarily for amenity reasons? Yeah, okay.
Councillor Theobald and then Councillor Robinson.
I would like to say something on this. I couldn't quite understand. Is that all right if I say something then? Okay. Well, I'm only going to say I'm not keen on backland development like this usually, and I know it's got outline planning permission, and it's been reduced in size, but it still seems rather large, and it's a 4-bedroom home. And with these tree screening actually removed, it will be visible, and even I feel sorry for the neighbours. Even the inspector says a loss of privacy. There will be a loss of privacy for the residents. So, I would, and also I think it would start a precedence off in that area because, as far as I know, there aren't any backland developments actually adjusted round that way. Further up there is, but not there.
I think we've all been told that the precedent is not part of the planning consideration because I raised that earlier.
Yeah, but I'm just a bit torn about this, so I do think it's a bit of a over-development still. Thank you.
Councillor Robinson?
With the construction management plan, can we add something about vibration in there? Because I think vibration is the most important thing with these windows, and that was what happened to me.
That's standard apparently, along with dust and debris and noise and things like that. Thank you. Councillor Shears.
Sorry, Chair, I think I might be going against the grain on this one slightly, but I'm slightly worried that some of the details in the construction, also except this is a standard construction management plan that we use across the city, and I understand that a lot of these are very relevant. I feel like they are very relevant for major development sites, and some of the things we might be proposing here might be excessive for a smaller development such as this one. So can you just make sure that whatever we put in this construction management plan, it is only what is relevant to the development. We aren't asking excessive requirements on the developer of a singular house development.
I'm in total agreement with you because I think one of the things, talking about site compound, for example, I mean, having had lots of major developments in my ward, I know that there's highly unlikely to be a site compound here. But yeah, if we can tailor it to, because obviously the template is for something slightly different. Councillor Cattell.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I agree with yourself and Councillor Sheard on this one. It is a sledgehammer to crack a nut, and I think that obviously, the objector is in contact or knows Simon and can, pass on any issues through him if necessary. And I don't think, because we are quite limited in our enforcement powers at the moment, I think if there was to be, a so-called a breach of this condition, I'm not sure how we would be able, how quickly we'll be able to deal with it. In fact, I think it might be quicker to go, to sort of go through the party wall sort of way of dealing with any issues. So I'm not going to vote in favour of the extra condition, and I'll be voting in favour of the application because I honestly can't see a problem with it. But thank you.
Not from them.
I get the objection that the house needs to be protected, but I can't see how any development won't involve, if it's digging out and preparing, whatever's built there is going to require digging out and preparing, isn't it? So you'll have the same problem, whatever's approved there. So, yeah, sorry, I shouldn't really address you, excuse me. So yeah, I think the digging out and preparing is going to be needed to be done anyway, and so the lorries thundering through and removing stuff is going to happen whatever the plan, whatever's approved there. So I don't see any reason in delaying approving this. So I'm going to vote for it.
Thank you. Anybody else? So I'll just put my 2 pence in and say that I'm inclined to approve the application, but also bearing in mind, the residents' petition today, to just be really mindful of neighbours. I think we have this a lot when we have neighbours, that nobody wants this disruption right on their doorstep, and particularly if you've got a historic house. So as long as we can be assured that the condition is there to do what we can, then I'm. Sorry. We're just finishing the debate. I was just doing my little summing up, if that's all right. It's arts and crafts, and it sounds like a beautiful house, and we've actually seen it. But you're right. Thank you, Councillor, for pointing that out. I am aware it's not locally listed, and I will be voting for it. Thank you. The debate is now finished, and I'm now going to ask the lawyer to propose us voting on the condition.
So I understand that you've finished the debate, so now you're looking at the proposal with regards to the additional condition, which has been proposed by Councillor Shanks, seconded by Councillor Robinson, which regards the addition of a construction management plan, details as per what Maria said. So who is in favour of adding that into any permission that's granted? So 1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
So 7 people want the addition of the condition, and those against 3. So that would be added were the permission to be granted today.
Okay.
And so now, if there are no other amendments, you're going to the substantive vote of the recommendation with the addition of that condition. So
how does that leave us then if we don't?
Well, so if you take the vote.
Just vote.
Okay, let's take it to the vote. Who is in favour of the approving the application?
6, 7, 8, 9, 9 more.
And against?
1.
That is agreed, therefore, by 9 votes to 1. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time, Mr. Newey. And I will just make a mention of the appeals, which are at the end of the agenda, if anybody wants to make a note. I've already mentioned the L3 Harris. There are no informal hearings or public inquiries listed on the agenda, and a list of planning application appeal decisions from the planning inspector are attached. This meeting is now closed. Thank you all for your time.
Yeah.
Thank you.